Ecclesiastes 7, verses 11 through 16. Ecclesiastes 7, beginning at verse 11. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. So wisdom gives life, so wisdom allows us to see the sun, and that is a good thing. Consider the work of God, for who can make that straight which he hath made crooked? In the day of prosperity be joyful, but in the day of adversity consider God also hath set the one over against the other. So he has set prosperity against adversity, to the end that man should find nothing after him. All things have I seen in the days of my vanity. There is a just man that perisheth in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man that prolongeth his life in his wickedness. Be not righteous over much, neither make thyself over wise. Why shouldest thou destroy thyself? Here we have the preacher exploring wisdom and folly, much like is done in Proverbs. We have it here again in Ecclesiastes, and wisdom and folly are on opposite poles of a continuum. As we feed the flesh, we nurture and satisfy our carnal appetites, our carnal cravings. We move further away from God and closer to destruction. As we obey God and exercise faith, we move closer to Him. Proverbs 2. Get there real quick. Proverbs 2, 1 through 9. My son, if thou wilt receive my words and hide my commandments with thee, so that thou incline thy ear unto wisdom, and apply thine heart to understanding. Yea, if thou criest after knowledge and liftest up thy voice for understanding, if thou seekest her as silver and searchest for her as for hid treasures, then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord giveth wisdom. Out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. He is a buckler to them that walk uprightly. He keepeth the paths of judgment and preserveth the way of the saints. Then shalt thou understand righteousness and judgment and equity, yea, every good path. So we learn a little bit about life through the lens of wisdom and through the lens of folly as well. Back to Ecclesiastes 7, verses 23 through 26, the preacher says, all this have I proved by wisdom. I said, I will be wise, but it was far from me. That which is far off and exceeding deep, who can find it out? I applied mine heart to know and to search and to seek out wisdom and the reason of things, and to know the wickedness of folly, even of foolishness and madness. And I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart here affliction and folly is personified in a woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands as bands. Whoso pleaseth God shall escape from her, from folly, but the sinner shall be taken by her. So we see here on this continuum, we see folly, we see foolishness of trying to satisfy the appetites of the flesh, and we see wisdom, executing righteousness, honoring God, and living for Him. At the beginning of the text, the minister spoke of an inheritance. And indeed, we have been given a holy heritage, a good inheritance. In fact, in Romans 8, Paul says that all who are led by the Spirit of God are the sons of God, that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Jesus, who have in a sense inherited a glory which is yet to be revealed to us, yet to be realized in heaven. We endeavor in this life to make a way, perhaps make a name for ourselves, even create or establish ourselves in a manner that improves our station in life. We go to school and we get educated, and we endeavor to find the right path that the Lord has for us, to find a career and to find a spouse and all of that. And we do well to get established in the gospel along with those things. The minister says that as we endeavor to find these things, the human nature is to feed the carnal mind and to seek things that gratify the flesh. And as such, it leads to destruction. It is foolishness, he concludes. But if we give ourselves unto the Lord and we seek Him, that is where we find gain. That is where we find wisdom. Knowledge is not wisdom. Wisdom is perhaps the execution of knowledge, but knowledge really doesn't accomplish much if it's not used. We can know a lot of things, but it doesn't serve us well. Wisdom oftentimes comes from experience, comes from failure. We fail sometimes, don't we? We don't anticipate things. We don't prepare things. Maybe we're surprised, and it leads to failure. Maybe there are some unknown circumstances that we weren't prepared for, and we find ourselves in a situation that we did not expect. And it's in the course of failure, ironically, that we gain wisdom. And we can learn from some of those mistakes. We can gain knowledge, and we can learn to rely on the Lord when we've found ourselves in a failure because we were relying too much on ourselves, perhaps. And here it is. That is how wisdom is gained, and wisdom truly is gained by God. The Scriptures tell us that wisdom comes from God. The minister says, "Consider the work of God. Who can make that straight which He made crooked?" We may have ideas in our infinite wisdom about how the way things should be and the way things have always been done, how things have been done in the past. In fact, even in this chapter, the minister says, don't think about how things were done in the past. Look to the future. Look to God. And so it is, we can get stuck in these ideas in our own wisdom rather than godly wisdom. How can we make straight that which is crooked? We can't. It was intended to be crooked. The narrow way is a way of learning. It's a way of relying on God. It's a way of following God. We can't make it crooked, but we can learn to walk with the Lord on that way. In life, we are each given the opportunity to travel the path of affliction. That path looks very different to each of us. It may involve difficulties. It may involve learning to trust God in different ways, maybe in health, maybe in sorrow, maybe in grief. And we learn to trust the Lord, and we learn some things about His wisdom on this crooked and narrow path. Consider Job. As one reads Job, we sympathize with him. We sympathize with him because he's very human as you read it, and we see ourselves in him. Though perhaps our trials aren't as significant as his, we relate to him. Every injustice that he experiences, we think of our own experiences and the injustices that we have suffered. And we see Job grappling with this idea of how can we make straight this crooked life. All of these things that befall us. We see in Job his attempts to be righteous, to do the right things. We see him being misunderstood by his closest friends and his family. Oh, but Job learned about God's power and about God's mercy and God's faithfulness. Job 38, 3-4 says, "Gird up now thy loins like a man." This is the Lord speaking to Job. "For I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundation of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding." You know, much of the discourse in Job is this discussion between him and his friends about God's nature and Job's condition. And Job is very certain of himself. He's very sure of himself. And he has some ideas of God and how his righteousness works and the way that things should be. Oh, but the Lord corrects Job. And he's faithful to correct us as well. And we are given many opportunities in life for that correction. And what is so expressive in the book of Job is his humility. The Lord answers Job in a whirlwind. And he says, "Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge?" And then he goes into this, "Gird up now thy loins like a man." But he goes on and he continues, "Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy." Time after time after time, The Lord poses these questions to Job, and he says, Job, answer me. Answer me, Job, my ways. Tell me how I should have done it. And we've got 2 chapters of this. Very powerful questions that the Lord is demanding a response from Job. Job, all he can do is say, behold, I am vile. Behold, I am vile. You know, we go off to school and we buy a whole stack of books. And learning is good. Learning, there's some benefit to learning. But there are some things that those books cannot teach you and will not teach you. But the Spirit of God will move upon you, and He will teach you. And that is the lesson that we must learn. And that is the book, this is the book that we must read to know the Lord. And when we search the deeper things, we are confronted with God's holiness like Job was. And we say, oh, behold, I am vile. I have no answer for you, Lord. All I can do is lay my hand upon my mouth. I'm done. I have nothing else to say. I can proceed no further. Job continues in chapter 42, I know that thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be withholden from thee. I uttered that what I understood not, things too wonderful for me which I knew not. I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now mine eye seeth thee. Wherefore I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes. Oh, the wisdom of God, the wisdom of our Lord. It's not by our wealth or by our knowledge, not by our skill or our craft. It's not by our influence or any other thing that we are saved or that we can gain wisdom or that we can know God. No, it's by experiencing Him. We can hear about Him. We can read about Him. Oh, but we must experience Him. And that is the entrance to wisdom. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. All is vanity. My son, be admonished. Making many books, there is no end, and much study is weariness of the flesh. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. So what is it? What is it that brings wisdom? Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Vanity of vanities. All is empty. All is transitory. Nothing fulfills or nothing satisfies or nothing rewards like the gospel. Nothing is virtuous or worthy like God's holy book. Oh, there's a beautiful word here. And that is, we can seek our whole life to improve our position, to learn about ourselves and how we can advance in life, how we can establish ourselves, how we can begin a career, those are worthy endeavors. But it will not satisfy the soul. It will not bring wisdom. It will not bring peace. Only God can do that. We're going to have a time to pray, a time to talk to the Lord. A time where He can express to us, oh, these are my ways. Follow me. This is the way. Walk ye in it. The song is 264. The altars are open for prayer.